What if the absolute hardest moments in your life, the ones you felt sure would breaking, you aren't just something to survive, but something you can actually grow from?
Yeah, it sounds counterintuitive, maybe,
Yeah.
but it's a powerful idea.
It really is. And it's backed by, real human experience and increasingly by psychological science.
That's really the heart of what we're diving into today. We're exploring this concept, something called post-traumatic growth.
Post-traumatic growth, even the name, it sort of feels like a contradiction, doesn't it? Growth after trauma. How does that even work?
Well, and this is crucial, it's absolutely not about saying trauma is good or minimizing the pain, because the pain is immense, often lasting.
Right.
It's about understanding that in the aftermath, in that intense, sometimes messy, really difficult struggle to kind of integrate that experience into your life, there's potential there.
Potential for what exactly?
For profound positive psychological change. It's a process that can genuinely reshape who you are, often in really meaningful ways.
Okay. And to help us unpack this, we've gathered sort of a stack of different perspectives.
Yeah, we've got the more academic side, psychological definitions, research findings. Then there are pieces talking about practical strategies like coping skills and even specific therapies like narrative exposure therapy.
And importantly, we also have personal stories, right? And discussions from online communities about what this journey actually feels like for people going through it.
Exactly. So our mission here, really, is to pull out the key insights from all this. We want to get clear on what post-traumatic growth is.
Define it properly.
Yeah. And explore the how, like what helps it happen, what gets in the way. And really unpack how individuals navigate that incredibly complex path. From grappling with deep adversity to potentially emerging stronger, maybe more connected, or with a totally renewed sense of purpose.
It's a deep dive, truly, into finding light, finding ways to build again in that space that darkness leaves behind.
That's a good way to put it.
And why should this matter to you listening right now? Well, because hardship, in all its forms, it's just part of life, isn't it?
It is, unfortunately.
So understanding this isn't just, academic. It's about recognizing this very real capacity humans have for positive transformation after hitting those major challenges.
It's about seeing that potential in your own difficult times, maybe, or in supporting people you care about through theirs.
Yeah, it's like a roadmap, not just for scraping through the hard times, but maybe, just maybe, building a richer, more authentic life because of them.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. What exactly is post-traumatic growth? The core definition from the psychological side is, it's pretty straightforward on the surface.
Okay.
It's the positive psychological change people experience as a result of struggling with highly challenging, highly stressful life circumstances.
And you used a key word there, I think, struggling. It's not the trauma itself magically making you stronger.
No, absolutely not. And that's such a critical point, one that comes up again and again. The growth isn't a direct result of the trauma. It doesn't just happen.
Right.
It comes from the struggle the person engages in, the effort to make sense of it, to adapt to the new reality that the trauma has created.
So these big experiences, a health crisis, a major loss, an accident, violence, they shake your foundations.
They completely challenge your existing assumptions, how you saw the world, yourself, how life was supposed to work.
Your mental map gets torn up.
Exactly. The growth comes from that incredibly hard work of grappling with that shattered worldview, trying to piece together a new understanding of your place in it all.
So the trauma breaks the old map, but the growth is the active process of drawing a new one.
Precisely. That struggle is the active ingredient. And, while the term post-traumatic growth and its formal study in psychology is fairly recent, it really kicked off in the 90s. The core idea, it's ancient.
Oh, right. I remember seeing that. This isn't some brand new discovery.
Not at all. This idea that suffering can potentially lead to positive transformation, you find it everywhere, across cultures throughout history.
In philosophy, spiritual traditions.
Absolutely. Ancient Hebrews, Greeks, early Christians, then Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, the Baha'i faith. It's explored in art and literature for centuries. Psychology is now just giving it a name, defining it, trying to study the how scientifically.
And it's also really important to separate PTG from resilience, right? They sound similar, but they're not the same thing.
They really aren't, though they're related. Resilience is often thought of as bouncing back.
Okay, like getting back to normal after something tough.
Yeah, returning to your previous state of equilibrium. You weather the storm, you get back on your feet, You're basically how you were before.
But PTG is different.
PTG is about bouncing forward. It's growing beyond that previous baseline. You are fundamentally changed by the experience, but in positive ways.
Ah, okay. So resilience is like restoring the system. PTG is upgrading it.
That's a decent analogy, yeah. And resilience can absolutely be a pathway to PTG. You often need that ability to bounce back or develop it just to be able to do the hard work, the struggling that growth requires.
Makes sense.
But you can definitely be resilient, get back to your baseline without experiencing significant post-traumatic growth. PTG implies this transformation, this positive change beyond just recovery.
Okay, got it. So positive change that comes through active struggle after a major life challenge.
Yeah.
But what does that growth actually look like? How would you know if you or someone else is experiencing it?
That's a great question. And the research has actually identified 5 common areas or domains where people frequently report experiencing this kind of growth.
Ah, okay, like categories of change.
Exactly. Think of them as different facets of life where this transformation tends to show up. They give us a framework, a way to understand the shape of this growth.
So what are these 5 areas?
Okay. The first one is appreciation of life.
Appreciation of life.
Yeah. This means things like a shift in priorities about what's really important, gaining a much deeper appreciation for your own life, for being alive, and often an increased appreciation for each day, for the small, ordinary moments.
That makes a lot of sense intuitively.
Yeah.
I mean, if you face something life-threatening or experience a huge loss, it must just rearrange your perspective on everything.
It really does. Things you used to stress about might suddenly seem, well, pretty insignificant compared to the simple fact of breathing or the importance of the people around you.
Yeah.
It's like facing mortality or that kind of deep loss acts like a filter. It clarifies what was always valuable but maybe got lost in the shuffle of daily life.
And why do those small moments become so big?
Well, I think because the fragility of it all becomes so real, the idea that things can change in an instant, that becomes undeniable. So seeing a beautiful sunset, really tasting your coffee, having a real laugh with someone.
Those aren't just background noise anymore.
Exactly. They become foreground moments. They have this incredible value. It's like the world gets sharper, more vibrant in a way.
People often say that after serious illness or accident, don't they?
Yeah.
That they notice things they never saw before.
That sharpened perception is definitely part of it. Okay, the second area is relating to others.
How you connect with people.
Yeah. Growth here looks like things such as maybe relying on others more comfortably, feeling a greater sense of closeness or intimacy in relationships, being more willing to express emotions, both yours and understanding others.
Mm-hmm.
It can mean increased compassion, putting more effort into relationships, really appreciating people, and maybe accepting that, yeah, sometimes you do need others.
It's interesting because hardship can feel so isolating, but you're saying it can also deepen connections.
In incredible ways, yes. Sharing that vulnerability, letting yourself be supported when you're really down, that can forge incredibly powerful
It
bonds.
strips away the superficial stuff.
It really can. Navigating a crisis, especially with others, often leads to a level of honesty and intimacy that just wasn't there before. And empathy.
Understanding what others feel.
That often gets profoundly deepened by going through significant suffering yourself. When you've no intense pain, you connect with someone else's struggle on a level that, just thinking about it can't reach.
Yeah, you get it.
You get it. And critically, this underlines why social support is so vital. It's not just nice to have, it's often a key part of the growth process itself. Leaning on others, letting them help, that's part of the work.
You can't really do this kind of deep, messy growth totally on your own.
Generally, no. Okay, third area, personal strength.
Okay, this sounds more like the classic idea.
A bit, but with nuance. It's about developing a greater sense of self-reliance, feeling more capable, believing more strongly in your ability to handle future difficulties. It also involves things like improved acceptance of life's outcomes, things you can't change, and often discovering a kind of mental toughness or resilience you never knew you had.
So it's that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger idea. But it's more than just surviving. It's an internal shift, a realization.
Exactly. It's forged in that fire. Just the act of getting through a major crisis, putting one foot in front of the other when everything feels impossible, that shows you what you're capable of.
You test your limits.
And often find they're way beyond what you thought. There was that anecdote, I think it was a therapist in Winnipeg.
Oh yeah, the break-in story.
That's the one. His house was broken into, robbed, a really stressful, upsetting event for anyone. But he had this moment of realization afterwards. He thought, okay, my house was broken into, I was robbed. But this was nothing compared to the abuse I went through earlier in life.
Wow.
It wasn't minimizing the break-in. It was recognizing the incredible inner strength and perspective he'd gained from processing that much deeper earlier trauma. That struggle had fundamentally shifted his baseline for what felt overwhelming.
That really brings it home. It's not abstract. It's that feeling of, I survived that. I can handle this.
Yeah. That internal recalibration, yes, that's key. Okay, fourth area, new possibilities.
New possibilities. What does that look like?
It can be developing totally new interests, sometimes establishing a completely new path in life, feeling driven to do maybe better or more meaningful things with your life, seeing new opportunities that you just didn't see before, and maybe having an increased willingness to actually change things in your life that need changing.
Adversity definitely closes doors sometimes, right? Careers end, health changes, relationships shift, things you thought were certain.
Absolutely.
But you're saying that closing of doors can paradoxically open new ones.
Exactly. When those old paths disappear, or when the trauma just forces you to fundamentally reevaluate everything, it can push you to explore things you never would have considered.
Like the example of Adrian O'Malley, the man who had a stroke.
Yeah, a stroke at 34, that's a massive life-altering event. It closes a lot of doors. But he reported that learning about and reflecting on PTG actually made him feel happier, more in control.
That's fascinating. How?
Well, it seems that engaging with his new reality, maybe seeing the potential for adapting, finding new ways of being, it led him towards unexpected possibilities. It gave him a renewed sense of agency, even within limitations.
And we saw this theme really strongly in that online discussion we looked at, didn't we? People talking about finding meaning outside traditional jobs or life paths after tough times.
Yes. That was powerful. People sharing how burnout or losing faith in a career or personal crises forced them to ask, what's really important here?
And they found answers in unexpected places.
Yeah, shifting focus to volunteering, digging up old creative passions, finding huge satisfaction in helping others. Adversity can be that catalyst that pushes you off a path that maybe wasn't right anyway.
And forces you to look around, see what else is there?
Exactly. Revealing opportunities or directions that align better with your deeper values, things that were there all along, just unseen.
It's like the disruption creates the space you needed to reimagine things.
It really can. Okay, the fifth and final area is spiritual change.
Spiritual change.
Yeah.
How does that manifest?
Often, it's developing a deeper understanding of spiritual matters. For some, it might mean a strengthening of their existing religious faith. For others, it could be developing new core beliefs about life, meaning, existence.
Crisis definitely makes you ask the big why questions, doesn't
Oh.
it? Why me? Why this? What does it all mean? It must challenge your deepest beliefs.
It absolutely does. Beliefs about fairness, order, maybe a higher power, they all get put under pressure.
And people react differently.
Totally. For some, that challenge leads to a deepening of their existing faith. They find comfort, meaning, answers within that framework. For others, it might spark a more personal, maybe less conventional spiritual exploration, developing new ideas about connection, purpose, how everything fits together.
Like that Hindu perspective from the online discussion.
That was a fascinating example, framing suffering not as random or pointless, but as potentially purposeful. Maybe chosen by the soul in that view to learn specific lessons, grow spiritually, move towards higher states of being.
So that kind of spiritual lens gives a framework for making sense of hardship, integrating it into a larger story of growth.
It can be incredibly powerful for finding meaning, yes.
Okay, so those 5 areas, appreciation of life, reloading to others, personal strength, new possibilities, and spiritual change, give us a really clear picture of what this growth can look like.
A map of the territory, so to speak.
But like you said, growth doesn't just magically appear, it comes from the struggle. So how do people actually navigate that? What tools do they use?
Right. And this brings us squarely to coping strategies. The materials we looked at are really clear on this. Healthy coping skills are absolutely vital. They're the tools you need to navigate the intense stress and distress that follow adversity.
They help you handle the immediate fallout.
Yeah, they help you tolerate it, minimize it, deal with the stress, basically creating the mental and emotional space you need for the deeper processing and eventually for growth to happen.
So coping isn't just about feeling a bit better right now. It's actually enabling the growth process.
Exactly. It's managing the immediate storm so you can eventually engage with what caused it. And the sources talk about 2 main types of coping.
Okay.
Problem-focused coping and emotion-focused coping.
Right. Break those down for us. What's the difference?
Okay, problem-focused coping is all about trying to change the situation itself, the source of the stress. It works best when you actually can change something about the problem.
Makes sense. And emotion-focused?
Emotion-focused coping is about changing how you feel about the situation. Managing your emotional reaction. This is your go-to when you can't change the external circumstances.
Like that performance review example they used.
Perfect example. Bad review, stress, problem focus. Talk to the boss, understand the feedback, make a plan to improve. You're tackling the source.
Right.
Emotion focused in that moment. Maybe taking a walk at lunch, listening to music, reading something unrelated, just to manage the anxiety and disappointment so you can think clearly later.
And the messy teenager's room example.
Same idea. Problem focused, set clear consequences. Clean your room or no phone. You're directly trying to change the situation.
Okay.
Emotion focused. The parent taking deep breaths, maybe going for a quick walk before talking to the teen so they can manage their own frustration and have a calmer, more productive conversation.
Got it. So it's not that one type is inherently better than the other.
Not at all.
It's about choosing the right tool for the job.
Yeah.
Can I change this thing, or do I need to manage my reaction to it right now?
Precisely. And the sources give tons of examples of healthy coping skills. These are the techniques that help calm that stress response, help you process emotions, but without creating new problems down the line or just burying the issue.
Okay, give us some examples. What falls under healthy, emotion-focused coping?
All right, lots of things here. Basic self-care is huge. Taking a relaxing bath, getting out in nature, even just basic hygiene can make a difference. Hobbies, getting lost in something like coloring, music, crafts. Physical activity is a big one. Yoga, walking, hiking, dancing, whatever works for you.
Getting your body moving.
Yeah. Focusing intently on a task can help too. Cleaning, cooking, gardening, reading, anything that absorbs your attention. And mindfulness practices are key.
Like meditation.
Meditation, definitely. Also things like gratitude lists or journaling, we should come back to that. Deep breathing exercises. Visualizing a calm, happy place. Using relaxation strategies like petting an animal, using a stress ball, aromatherapy, listening to calming apps.
You mentioned gratitude journaling that came up specifically in one of the personal stories, didn't it? The rising above piece.
It did, and it was a really powerful example. The person described their gratitude journal as a kind of sanctuary during intense distress.
How did it help?
By deliberately focusing on things they were thankful for, even tiny things, it helped quiet that internal storm's roar, as they put it. It shifted focus from the overwhelming stress to moments of thank you, even thanking themselves for just showing up each day. It really highlights how an emotion-focused strategy like gratitude practice can be incredibly powerful for managing that immediate distress. It creates just enough emotional space to start processing the difficulty without being totally swamped by it, and it connects directly back to that PTG domain of appreciation of life.
That makes total sense. It dials down the immediate emotional volume so you can actually think and feel without being overwhelmed.
Yeah.
What about healthy, problem-focused coping examples?
These tend to be more action-oriented, things like actively asking for support, friends, family, professionals. Again, that social connection piece.
Right.
Creating to-do lists, breaking down huge, overwhelming problems into smaller, manageable steps, engaging in structured problem solving, setting healthy boundaries with people or situations that are draining you or adding stress.
Saying no sometimes?
Exactly. Physically walking away from a stressful situation if it's safe and possible to de-escalate. And managing your time better can also be problem-focused if feeling overwhelmed by tasks is the issue.
Okay, so healthy coping is about managing feelings constructively or tackling problems directly. But there's also the flip side, unhealthy coping skills, the things that get in the way of growth.
Yes, and it's crucial to recognize these because they might feel like they help in the short term, but they usually create bigger problems later.
Like what?
Obvious ones are using substances, alcohol, drugs to numb the pain. It might offer temporary escape, but it brings a whole host of other issues.
Addiction, health problems.
Right. Things like overeating or severely restricting food that creates an unhealthy relationship with your body and food. Sleeping way too much can just be a form of hiding.
Avoidance.
Exactly. Even excessive venting, if it's just going round and round in circles without looking for solutions or understanding, can keep you stuck in the pain. Overspending can lead to financial stress on top of everything else. And probably the biggest one overall is simply avoiding the problem.
Just pretending it's not there or pushing it away. That seems like the direct opposite of the struggle needed for growth.
It absolutely is. Avoidance might give you temporary relief from feeling bad, but it stops you cold from processing the experience, learning anything from it, or adapting to the new reality. It basically keeps the wound festering instead of letting it heal and become part of your story.
And coping isn't just about reacting when stress hits, right?
Hmm.
You mentioned proactive coping.
Yeah, that's another important angle. Proactive coping is about looking ahead, anticipating potential future stressors and making a plan for how you'll handle them before they happen.
So, like, if you know certain situations or dates are triggers for past trauma, you plan ahead.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Or maybe planning how you'll navigate holiday parties if you're managing your weight or sobriety. Or anticipating the emotional and practical challenges of living with a chronic illness like diabetes, or recovering from something major like a stroke, and planning support systems or strategies in advance.
You're building your toolkit before the storm hits.
Precisely. It gives you a sense of preparedness, a feeling of being better equipped, which can reduce anxiety about future challenges.
And through all this talk of coping skills, the key message seems to be that it's very individual.
Absolutely. Finding what works for you is critical. What calms one person down when they're angry, maybe going for a run, might just make someone else feel even more agitated.
Right.
You really have to experiment. Pay attention to your own responses, what genuinely helps you feel calmer, clearer, more grounded in different situations and with different emotions. It's an ongoing process of self-discovery, building your own unique toolkit.
Okay, so healthy, personalized coping is vital for managing the struggle that fuels growth. But what about really severe situations? Complex trauma, repeated trauma, where someone feels completely shattered, maybe fragmented. Are there more structured ways therapy can help process those overwhelming memories?
Yes, definitely. And one specific approach designed precisely for survivors of multiple and complex trauma, which came up in our sources, is narrative exposure therapy, or NET.
NET. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the core idea behind it?
It's based on this theory of how traumatic memories get stored differently from regular memories. They talk about a dual representation, cold memories versus hot memories.
Cold versus hot. Can you break that down? Maybe use an analogy.
Okay, imagine your life story is like a timeline or a photo album in your mind. Cold memories are the facts, the context. They're like the labels under the photos. This happened on this date at this place. These people were there. You can generally access them, deliberately put them in order.
They're organized.
Right. Hot memories, though. They're different. They're the raw sensory fragments, what you saw, heard, smelled, felt physically, the intense emotions you felt in that moment, the thoughts racing through your head, your body's physiological reactions, heart pounding, sweating.
So they're the raw, intense fragments of the experience itself.
Exactly. Stored without the full context. And in conditions like PTSD, especially complex PTSD from multiple traumas, these hot fragments burst into your present awareness involuntarily.
Like flashbacks.
Flashbacks, intrusive images, body sensations. They come without the cold memory context of when and where. The sources called it a flipbook effect for multiple traumas, rapid, fragmented intrusions from different events.
And because they lack context, they feel like they're happening now.
Precisely. The brain's fear network gets triggered, and you have these intense emotional and physical reactions as if the danger is current because the memory isn't anchored in the past.
That sounds incredibly disruptive and terrifying.
It absolutely is. So the main goal of NET is to help the person transform these fragmented, intrusive, hot memories into a coherent chronological narrative of their entire life story, from birth onwards.
Weaving it all together.
Exactly. It's about carefully contextualizing the hot memories by deliberately linking them to the cold, factual details, like weaving those fiery, fragmented images back into the main thread of the life story, placing them firmly in the past where they belong.
How do they actually do that weaving in therapy?
A common first step is creating a lifeline. The client and therapist work together to create a visual representation of the person's life, often using a rope or string. They mark significant positive events, maybe with flowers or colorful markers, and negative or traumatic events with stones or knots.
So you get a visual overview of the whole life journey.
Yeah, it gives a bird's eye view, helps identify the key traumatic events, the stones causing symptoms that really need processing. It frames the trauma within the context of a whole life, not just isolated horror.
Okay, that makes sense. Then what?
Then, in the narrative exposure sessions, they go through the lifeline chronologically. When they reach a traumatic event, the therapist guides the client to describe it in detail, but not just the facts. They focus on what the source is called head, heart, body, then and now.
Head, heart, body, then and now.
Yeah. What were you thinking, head, at that moment? What emotions were you feeling, heart? What physical sensations, body, were happening? And crucially, as you talk about it now, what thoughts, feelings, or sensations are coming up for you then and now?
So it's a very embodied, multi-layered retelling.
Very much so. The therapist stays very present, asks clarifying questions, encourages the full expression of emotion, and watches the client's reactions closely. A key part is helping the client stay with the difficult emotions and sensations as they arise in the telling within the safety of the therapy room.
Not avoiding the tough parts.
Right. Gently challenging avoidance, maybe saying something like, I know this is incredibly hard, but you're safe here with me now. Let's just stay with that feeling for another moment.
And the goal is to stay in that hot spot until there's some shift, some relief.
Yes. By staying with that high emotional and physical arousal while simultaneously connecting it to the factual context, the cold memory details, it helps the brain reprocess the memory.
Huh.
The hot fragments get integrated with the cold context
So they stop being intrusive fragments.
and become part of the person's coherent life story, something that happened then, not something constantly threatening to happen now.
And didn't the sources mention a unique outcome sometimes associated with NET?
Yes, often a major incentive for clients is that the therapist helps compile this detailed narrative into a written autobiography at the end of the therapy.
A written record of their life story, including the trauma.
Exactly. And this document isn't just for personal reflection. In some contexts, it's been used for human rights advocacy, giving survivors a powerful testimony, turning their painful history into something that can bear witness and demand justice.
Wow, that's an incredible potential outcome. From fragmented internal chaos to a coherent story that can affect change. So NET provides this structured way to tackle really complex trauma, creating a foundation where growth might become more possible.
Precisely. It directly addresses the fragmentation that keeps people stuck, allowing the life story to integrate and flow again, making space for healing and positive change.
Okay, so let's step back a bit. How does this whole concept of post-traumatic growth fit into the bigger picture of psychology today? Where does it sit?
Well, PTG is generally considered a key concept within positive psychology.
Positive psychology. That's the branch that focuses more on strengths and well-being,
Right.
not just on illness.
Exactly. It emerged partly as a counterbalance to study what makes individuals and communities flourish, looking at positive emotions, character strength, virtues, meaning, positive relationships, healthy institutions, rather than solely focusing on pathology and dysfunction.
Looking at what goes right with people.
That's a good way to put it. And if you look at the core themes in positive psychology, things like life satisfaction, healthy relationships, cultivating resilience and strengths, finding meaning and purpose, spirituality, authenticity,
You see a massive overlap with the 5 PTG domains we talked about.
a really clear overlap. Yes, appreciation of life, relationships, personal strength, new possibilities, spiritual change. These areas where people grow after trauma are fundamentally the same areas that positive psychology identifies as crucial components of a fulfilling, well-lived life.
That makes perfect sense. So are therapists actively using interventions from positive psychology to try and foster PTG?
They are. Positive psychology interventions, or KPIs, are increasingly being used. They often include ways to measure PTG and frequently take a strengths-based approach, helping people identify and build on the capacities they already have, even amidst struggle.
And is there evidence these work?
The sources suggest that yes, PPIs designed specifically to reduce stress and promote PTG have shown promise. They seem effective, sometimes with lasting effects, and have found particular success in health psychology settings.
Like helping people cope and find meaning after a serious medical diagnosis.
Exactly. Things like cancer, heart disease, chronic illness, helping people navigate those massive life changes and potentially find growth through the process. So fostering both resilience and PTG is definitely becoming a focus.
Okay, but there's a really important nuance here, isn't there? Something about PTG and PTSD.
Yes, absolutely vital. And it really challenges a common assumption. The research is quite clear. PTG and negative outcomes like post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, can and very often do coexist.
Wait, so you can be experiencing significant PTSD symptoms, the flashbacks, the nightmares, the avoidance, feeling constantly on edge, but at the same time be experiencing growth in, say, your relationships or appreciation for life.
Yes, it's not an either situation where growth means the suffering magically disappears.
That's huge,
Mhm.
because I think many people assume if you've grown, you must be over it.
And that's often not the reality. The presence of PTG doesn't negate the trauma's devastating impact or mean the pain, the fear, the grief is gone. Growth happens alongside the ongoing struggle, alongside the potential distress.
Wow.
In fact, one meta-analysis mentioned found a positive association between PTSD symptoms and PTG. Growth was often highest when PTSD symptoms were in the moderate range.
Why would that be?
It suggests that actually engaging with the distress, processing those difficult emotions and memories, which is what generates PTSD symptoms, in a way is part of the very struggle that facilitates the growth. You have to grapple with the darkness to find the new light.
So growth doesn't replace the pain, it grows through it, sometimes with it.
That seems to be the complex reality for many.
And speaking of complexity, isn't there some debate within the research world about PTG itself, whether it's always real?
Yes, there's an important ongoing discussion about whether self-reported PTG always reflects genuine, deep psychological change, or if sometimes it might be what researchers call illusory growth, or a form of self-deceptive enhancement.
Meaning?
The idea is that for some people, perceiving growth might actually be a coping mechanism in itself, telling yourself, I'm stronger now, or I appreciate life more because of this, could be a way to make sense of something horrific and meaningless, a way to impose meaning on the chaos to make it bearable.
So the story you tell yourself about the trauma helps you cope, even if the underlying psychological change isn't as profound as the story suggests.
That's the hypothesis some researchers explore. The reality is likely complex. It's probably not as simple either. Perceived PTG likely involves a mix of genuine psychological shifts and elements of this narrative coping for many people.
It's messy.
It is, and this debate highlights how difficult it is to measure these internal changes objectively. Researchers are still figuring out how to disentangle the different aspects, but importantly, even if some of the perceived growth is part of a coping narrative, that perception itself can still be really beneficial. It can help people integrate the experience and move forward with a sense of meaning.
Okay. So we've talked about coping, growth. What about thriving? The sources mention that too. Is that like the next step beyond PTG?
Thriving is often talked about in that way, yes. It implies something more than just returning to baseline resilience or even experiencing positive changes in those 5 domains. PTG. It suggests a state of enhanced functioning, well-being, and adaptability for the future.
So it's not just about processing the past trauma, but being better equipped moving forward because of it.
Exactly. Because of what you've been through, the struggles you've navigated, the growth you've experienced, you've developed a greater capacity, maybe more flexibility, better coping skills, a deeper understanding of yourself. You're more resilient and capable of handling whatever life throws at you next.
Integrating all those lessons learned.
Yeah. Donald Meichenbaum's 5 fields, which align closely with the PTG domains, are sometimes used to map out this enhanced functioning associated with thriving. It's about weaving the strengths gained, the new perspectives found, into a fundamentally different, often more vital and engaged way of living.
And connecting back to those new possibilities and spiritual change areas and the online discussions, finding or reclaiming a real sense of meaning and purpose seems absolutely central to thriving after hardship.
Oh, absolutely. Adversity is often that powerful catalyst that forces you to strip away the non-essential and ask those deep questions. What truly matters? What are my core values? What kind of life do I want to live? What is my purpose?
And the process of PTG helps find answers.
Often, yes. Exploring those new possibilities, engaging with spiritual questions, it frequently leads to this profound shift towards aligning your life more closely with those answers. Whether that means dedicating yourself to helping others affected by similar traumas, pursuing a passion you'd ignored, getting involved in activism, or simply cultivating a deeper presence and appreciation in your daily life. Finding and living that sense of purpose seems to be a cornerstone of moving beyond just surviving or growing into truly thriving.
This has been, wow, such a rich and layered exploration.
It really covers a lot of ground, doesn't it? We started by defining post-traumatic growth, remembering it's not from the trauma itself, but from that active, difficult struggle with its aftermath, rebuilding a shattered world.
Right, and we mapped out those 5 key areas where this positive transformation often shows up. The deepened appreciation of life.
Richer relating to others, discovering that unexpected personal strength.
Opening up to new possibilities and finding meaningful spiritual change.
Then we really dug into the toolbox, the crucial role of healthy coping strategies for navigating the struggle. Distinguishing problem-focused from emotion-focused, the power of things like gratitude, seeking support.
And the danger of unhealthy coping, especially avoidance. And remembering proactive coping, too.
And we touched on a specific therapy, narrative exposure therapy, designed for complex trauma, showing how structure can help integrate those fragmented, overwhelming memories into a coherent life story, paving the way for healing.
Yeah. We also saw how PTG fits within positive psychology's focus on flourishing and how interventions can support it.
While crucially remembering that nuance that growth can, and often does, coexist with ongoing pain and distress like PTSD.
Right.
Acknowledging that academic discussion about illusory versus genuine growth.
And finally, we touched on thriving, moving beyond just growth towards enhanced adaptability and well-being, often deeply connected to finding that renewed sense of meaning and purpose.
So if we boil it down, what are the key takeaways for you listening? I think first, growth is genuinely possible after trauma, but it requires that active struggle and processing. It doesn't just happen with time.
Second, healthy coping skills are absolutely essential tools. You need them to manage the distress so you can do the processing. Avoidance blocks growth.
Third, don't underestimate social support. Connection is incredibly powerful. Fourth, growth isn't just a fuzzy feeling. It manifests in those specific, identifiable ways: life appreciation, relationships, strength, possibilities, spirituality.
Fifth, and this is maybe the hardest but most important,
Yeah.
growth doesn't mean the pain is gone. Struggle and strength, pain and growth, they often exist together. It's complex.
And ultimately, that journey towards finding meaning, finding purpose, finding your own kind of light after darkness, it's deeply personal. It often involves that tough reevaluation of values, maybe finding completely new paths, sometimes reconnecting with others or parts of yourself you'd lost touch with.
Okay, so here's a final thought to leave you with. It echoes through a lot of what we discussed, kind of like that Rumi idea. Consider this. Maybe the cracks that appear when life breaks you open, maybe they aren't just points of weakness or damage. Maybe they're also the potential entry points for a completely new kind of light. A light that changes the whole landscape of your life, inside and out, in ways that are surprising, challenging, but perhaps ultimately more meaningful.
That's a beautiful thought to hold on to, something to really ponder.
Yeah. So we encourage you to reflect on your own experiences, maybe notice the coping strategies you lean on, and perhaps see where you or people you know might have already found some unexpected growth, some light coming through those cracks.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive today.
We'll see you next time.